It does not just taint a single game, it tears at the trust in the results that we cherish. The crimes alleged in today's indictment are not victimless. This was a calculated scheme designed to manipulate outcomes, deceive fans, corrupt athletes, and undermine credibility of our leagues and institutions. Yesterday's indictment reflects our commitment to protecting the integrity of sports at every level. It marks the second time in just a few months that the work of the FBI has illuminated the scourge of sports bribery. While the indictment marks a significant step in our investigation, our work continues as we're committed to aggressively identifying, investigating, and charging others who seek to profit by fixing games. Behind every bet is a record of the transaction, a piece of data that we, along with our partners, are continuing to exploit to identify anomalies which may be indicators of similar behavior. This approach is enhanced by our partnerships with governing bodies and with regulatory and private sector partners who will continue to leverage to hold those to account and put an end to this conduct. Today's arrests and indictments would not have been possible without the tireless efforts of the employees of the FBI, the agents, the analysts, the professional staff, whose expertise, persistence, and commitment to justice over the past 2 years were the driving force behind this investigation. We're also grateful for the close coordination of the United States Attorney's Office, the support of our fellow FBI field offices, each of whom played a critical role in bringing this case together. This is a team sport. Defending against corruption relies on the awareness and action of all participants, both on the sidelines and on the court. Let each of us standing here today, side by side, serve as a clear warning to professional and collegiate athletes and to anyone who seeks to manipulate them that there is nowhere to hide. The short-term gain will never be worth the long-term loss. The consequences are real: federal criminal charges, permanent damage to careers, and lasting harm to reputations. These are the shots that no athletes should take. Thank you.
As the United States Attorney, I present this case in that capacity, but I do have to say that the true credit belongs to the line FBI agents and the two gentlemen beside me. They're the ones who built this case. It took a great degree of effort, grit, determination, the type of values that you would see in sports. I'm glad you said this is a team sport, because it is. And this case is a reflection of that and all the values that we expect from our sports institutions. A tremendous amount of credit has to go to the FBI for their diligent and zealous construction of such an immense and impactful case that spanned the country. It's the type of cases that we want to do, and it's really a great reflection of the merit, the excellence of the agents who built it. As I said, this is the corruption of college sports. There is a substantial interest, public interest, in the integrity of sports. A great value of American society is a free, fair, and level playing field. That's why we have antitrust laws to protect competition and commerce. We have insider trading laws to protect the integrity and a level playing field in securities markets. And that's why we have the Sports Bribery Act to protect the integrity of collegiate sports. Sports in many ways are a microcosm, a metaphor for American society and our values. It means something a great deal to us. And when criminals rig the outcome of games for the purpose to lose, rather than to win, we all lose. And that's why we're here today. This is a significant case. I'll take some questions in a moment. Before I do, I want to say the investigation is ongoing. As you can imagine, this is an extensive, significant, ongoing case. We will continue to investigate. I encourage everyone out there who has information about sports wagering in the NCAA or any professional sports, who have information about this case or similar schemes, to come forward and give Special Agent in charge Wayne Jacobs a call and the U.S. Attorney's Office a call so we can continue this fight. With that, I'm happy to take a few questions about this case. Yes, ma'am.
Are these men in custody, and what would charges like these fetch if we got to sentencing, as well as what does restitution look like?
Some are in custody, some are not. It varies by defendant. As I mentioned, there's 26 defendants. Look, the sports bribery charge carries a maximum penalty of 5 years. The fraud statutes carry a maximum penalty of 20 years. When you ask what type of penalties will it fetch, it depends on a calculus of sentencing guidelines, all sorts of different factors. I couldn't speculate on that now. It's going to vary by defendant, the offense conduct, the amount of loss, all that weighs into this. You would expect in a case like this, the leaders and orchestrators of the scheme would face significantly more imprisonment than, individuals who had a very discrete role or a minor role. Yes, sir.
David, prior to today, the 1951 scandal involving CCNY is known as the most infamous scheme in college basketball history. How do you view this in the lens of that case? Is today's case even more pervasive in your view?
It's tough to compare them. I don't know the exact scope of this case. I'm just speaking extemporaneously now, but I would imagine it rivals it. I mean, this is a pretty pervasive corruption scheme. As I mentioned, we're talking about dozens of games, athletes, 17 teams. I do view it as historic for that reason. Yes?
Could you pull out one example from the indictment of the LaSalle-St. Bonaventure game? It looks like the LaSalle players refused to cooperate. That's what I take from the...
So there were times, as we allege in the indictment, in which there was an attempted fix of the game. And for various reasons, either because the players either did not cooperate or they were actually cooperating but were unsuccessful, the game was not actually, did not have the outcome that the organizers or leaders hoped they would. There's 9 other players on a court. There's coaches and there's referees. Now in basketball, one player could substantially influence a game in ways in other sports you cannot. But it's not a guarantee. But by and large, the scheme was very successful. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on her question, just because obviously we're hearing about the Philadelphia tie here for a bunch of us here.
Yeah.
With the LaSalle game, did those players, I know you said sometimes they attempted to fix, did the players not take the money or did they take the money and it wasn't successful? If you could speak to that a little bit.
I'm just going to refer you to the indictment on that. Look, in terms of the Philadelphia ties, I will say this. The case originated here. One of the defendants resides in this district. But more importantly, this is a nationally significant case with impact across districts, across offices, across jurisdictions and states. And our office wants to do these cases because they maximize the impact on public welfare. And in a case like this, of this complexion and gravity, all sorts of offices could bring those cases. It's a testament to the excellence of the FBI agents and these 2 gentlemen that our office brought it. And as I've said before, these are the type of cases our office wants to do, and we hope there'll be more to come on this score. Yes?
The 2 questions here real quick. The players that were caught, are they still in school? Have they been drafted by the pros? Do you have any idea what's going on?
It depends. It's tough to generalize when you ask questions about players. Some are professional basketball players in other leagues. Some are still in school. Yes, sir.
Just a two-pronged thing. One, first of all, 5 of the players and I believe it's one of the leagues were charged elsewhere. Why was that the case? And secondly, obviously, 2 of the defendants that you charged were also charged in the Eastern District of New York for NBA poker gambling-related cases. Did the 2 offices work together? Do you see a relationship between your investigation and theirs?
Let me address the first question first. You said they're charged elsewhere. Do you mean in a separate charging instrument?
The indictment says charged elsewhere.
Yes. So as I point out, there are indictments and related filings in this case. The indictment unsealed today is not the only charging document. To address your second question about the ED&Y case, there is a relationship between the 2 cases. Yes, we have been in coordination with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Eastern District of New York. I'm glad you asked this question because I do think it's helpful to distinguish this case from that one. There are defendants in common, but fundamentally this is a different criminal scheme. If you read the Eastern District of New York indictment, it is fundamentally an insider trading case with a complexion of sports. The individuals in that case were making wagers on insider information, for example, injuries, to make money based on insider information, right? But there is a really important difference between wagering on predicted outcomes on insider information and wagering on determined outcomes, outcomes that you control. The former is a crime against sports betting markets. The latter is a crime against the sport itself. And that's what this case is about. That's what makes it different, in my opinion, worse. Yes?
2 questions. One, any connection to the Major League Baseball pitchers that are being investigated for?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then, I know you say millions of dollars. Any ballpark figure on how much these guys made?
Millions of dollars. Investigation is ongoing. You know, I don't want to give you a number because it could change a week from now as we develop evidence. Yes, sir.
What do you think it says about sports or society that these types of gambling investigations are becoming significantly more common?
I'm a prosecutor, you know, not a policymaker. I can't speak to that. You know, he mentioned the 1951 case. There have been a spate of these gambling cases recently. Now, I will say that the evidence in this case shows that the monetization of college athletics and athletics generally through the liberalization and proliferation of sports betting markets, as well as the normalization of compensation athletics, furthered the enterprise in this case. But it's complicated, right? I mean, as we allege in the indictment, you know, certain players were targeted because they were somewhat missing out on NIL money. And this was being done, they were being targeted so they could supplement their NIL compensation, you know. Whether or not they would have done or not done a particular crime based on whether other athletes are being paid or themselves, I don't know. Again, that's the question for policymakers to answer. What I will say is this. You know, we're not going to sit here on the sidelines while this regulatory landscape figures itself out. You know, the Department of Justice is going to step in. You know, as Deputy Director Bailey said, as Special Agent in Charge Jabe said, we're going to step in to combat the corruption of this sport. You know, regulators and policymakers, I'm sure, will have to adapt to this, and everyone's figuring this out. I'm a sports fan. We're all figuring out this landscape. But we're going to act to make sure that this doesn't happen. Yes?
Last question I had was, the people that actually legitimately bet and legitimately lost, there's no recourse for them. They've lost their money.
I have no idea. I mean, that's not our decision to make. If you're talking about whether the sports books will refund their money, that's a question for them. I will say that the victims in this case span every sector of American life. You know, Deputy Director Bailey just mentioned the fans, right? You also have the honest athletes, the teammates of these players who are working their tail off. You know, I'll speak personally for a moment. I'm a college athlete. Jerome's a college basketball player. You know, we all wake up every day to hard work with a team. You know, we mentioned it's a team sport. As a collective, you know, sports taught me everything that I know. Every good quality I have is from sports. You know, hard work, adversity, learning how to lose. This totally flies in the face of all of that. And we lose a lot. Everyone is victimized by this case. It's not just the people who lost money on the sports betting games. That's what I hope I would convey to you, is to think of the victims in this case in a far more broad way. Yes, sir.
Could you elaborate at all more on how these guys were so seemingly able to access so many players so easily?
Yeah, I think, again, that is a critical part of the scheme. I'm glad you asked that question. Because the leaders of this conspiracy, we allege, were successful because of their connections in the college basketball world. And it varied, both formally and informally. They were players, they were recruiters, they were trainers. You know, defendant by defendant, again, I would just refer you to the indictment. One more question, yes?
How did you first get knowledge of the scheme? Obviously, David Metcalf says secret Chinese basketball games.
I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to divulge sources and methods. What I will say, again, is repeat, you know, my ask to everyone, if you have information about this scheme or others, to please pick up the phone and give us a call. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jalen Smith is
We're good.
not the
Thanks.
Chicago